streaming is on.
All right, so I definitely feel like it's very important to have gotten clarity on the 8 sub trajectories.
Yeah.
Because it's just super key. Now we can literally say, okay, there are exactly 8 sub trajectories under, the prime trajectory, under the Umbrella Showcase website launch.
Yeah.
And that will help us be much more organized.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go into the segments. So it's important. So we have our description / purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing is true. Again, this is part of the model here, where every single segment can be called whatever you want it to be called, right? The segments are the same as basically a trajectory, right? There's no difference, except it's not a trajectory, it's a segment. So it's more like a topic or a category or a priority, right? But technically speaking, they each can have their own description, and we can understand it in the context of, obviously, anything can be escalated, right? So any of these can, at any time, any of these segments can become their own sub trajectories.
Okay.
So we want to be prepared for that, right? So because everything's very flexible and evolvable, as we go into trajectories and as we go into sub trajectories, different things can evolve and change. And so it'll be very normal for a segment to go up into a sub trajectory, or a sub trajectory to become a segment, right? So anytime a sub trajectory basically goes underneath another sub trajectory, because we always are trying to reduce them. Like when any trajectory or sub trajectory basically comes to a completion or an end,
All right,
that trajectory just goes into one of the other trajectories, right? Does that make sense? Nothing ever disappears. It always just folds onto itself. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, we go over the same process. So we have the policies. We have the criteria, purpose, and scope. What is that? What's the criteria per scope? So schedule is really clear. We know that's a top priority.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in terms of prioritizing here, it would make sense to do a priority score.
Mm-hmm.
Because we want to try to prioritize. So I think the schedule is definitely one of our top priorities here.
Yeah.
So criteria, purpose, and scope, I think is not clear. So
I mean, what we did on Friday, we listed all those criteria. All the criteria, right?
What?
What we did on Friday, we listed the criteria for the. This is a sub trajectory of the umbrella trajectory, which is the Umbrella Showcase website. So on Friday, remember we listed all the criteria.
Yeah. So I think that the best place for the criteria to go is actually under the sub trajectory on the Umbrella Showcase website itself. Right. So this would be criteria and scope for the entire trajectory, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I agree.
So let's remove that, and then we can add that to the sub trajectory on the top one. Well, and because that also makes sense because it relates to everything.
The Umbrella Showcase website.
Yeah, so that's going under the Umbrella Showcase website sub trajectory. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is why every single normal trajectory and umbrella trajectory has a sub trajectory, is that normal trajectories do not have segments. Does that make sense?
All right.
Only sub trajectories have segments. Okay, so when you're trying to put a segment under a prime trajectory, that obviously goes under its own sub trajectory. Okay, so let's just delete that one. All right, then we have communications. So communications is relates to obviously meetings.
reviews, verifications,
reviews. I don't know about reviews. Discord,
updates.
email. So, for example, within SPV, once we set up the identity, we knew what we wanted to do. We set up the email list, the communication systems. That would all be part of that.
All right.
So we might even get a new Discord, right? Or understanding what Discord channels we're using. So as everything evolves, we are going to need to do that. So I think right now, I don't think communications is a very high priority because it's just fine. Our communications are fine. We're currently using Activity Team, right? So we'll just say Activity Team is our primary communications right now, right?
Yeah.
All right, decision making. So for decision making, we just use, normal methodology. So this is our protocols. I just don't think it's a huge priority either because we have perfectly fine decision-making protocols. Okay.
Yeah.
It would be good to document them. We could use some better documentation of our protocols and decision-making methodologies. Management. So management would have to do with basically our project management and
coordination, project management.
So this could be automated reminders, our timeline. I think we might want to separate the timeline, but that would also be under management.
We have our deadlines.
Timeline and deadline. So this would be. So I feel like the management would be more like deadlines. Except with a timeline is just kind of like overall day to day, week to week. Obviously, timeline is also project management. So it would be good to try to figure out how to I guess we could just say management, timeline management, or management and timeline, and just say like a timeline and management are both part of that. So it's good to try to have as few segments as possible. All right, so plan.
So what score would you give to management timeline?
Oh, I don't know, like 5, I guess, middle 5 or 6.
6.
I mean, this is where we kind of fall apart, right? This is basically our typical place where everything goes to crap, goes to bat. All right. So showcase launch plan. So this has been started.
But the showcase launch plan, no, that's launch agreement. All right.
And this is basically we're utilizing the Vortex model for our launch planning. And so that's kind of where our launch plan is right now. Is we need to organize and make sure each trajectory is clear, or sub trajectory, and then have it clear like the timelines within each one and that's all organized. But obviously the top priority is getting that into the schedule.
Schedule, yeah. I would put schedule.
So the showcase launch plan eventually we'll get to that. Do you think the showcase launch plan does require a vote at some point?
The launch plan?
Yeah.
I mean, usually we vote on when we move forward. I don't know. I mean, the actual plan, I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, so question, vote on this. I know we voted before on at least our timeline and other things. So I think that sometimes there is a vote somewhere in there. Anyways, let's put that like as on the 5, like in the middle as well. So training, I think, is pretty clear. Basically, it's like training on different components of the work that people don't know about, and we just need to keep track of that and update our training and things like that for it. And this would be training for the prime trajectory. Like anything that anyone needs to know to complete the prime trajectory work, there should be a training on it. So that includes the vortex modeling and trajectories. Primarily just the trajectories, like understanding how a trajectory works and how a trajectory leads you to your next priority and what you're supposed to be working on. So priorities, everything has priorities. So I would just go ahead and delete that.
Yeah, I mean, priorities goes into
training on the prime trajectory. What's that?
That's this training here. It's specifically on the prime trajectory, right? We need to include it in the training.
Well, what would be a training on prime trajectory? Like the umbrella. Again, for me, I don't even use the prime trajectory. I talk about the umbrella showcase website trajectory. Like that is the prime trajectory.
Yeah. No, I mean training on the trajectories. Yeah, not the prime trajectory.
Yeah, so I added that here. Priorities, topics, trajectories. I have that under the priorities and topics.
I'm gonna be including and updating the training. Training on the trajectory. The trajectories.
Yeah, I added that to priorities and topics, right? So it's just training on trajectories. I have trajectories right here. So training. So are there any other trainings that we need to include? Otherwise, I think it's all pretty clear on the trainings. I don't see why I would need this.
Okay, I get it. How you organize. Okay, yeah, okay, can delete it.
All right, so I would delete
vortex model in general. No.
What?
Trajectories and vortex model.
Yeah, I mean, I removed vortex model because I just don't even know if we really need to train on the vortex model. Like, it's as long as people understand the trajectories, they understand how a sub trajectory works and how the sub trajectory gets them to the next step.
That's the vortex model.
Well, that's the trajectory model. The vortex trajectories are just one small component of the vortex model. You see what I'm saying? Like the vortex model includes dozens of components, trajectories only being one of them. And I don't think people need to know about everything that goes on in a vortex. Like all they need to know is just the trajectory.
Okay.
At least for this, right?
At least for now, yeah.
For achieving the umbrella website launch. And again, this is why the prime trajectory is so important, because once we have a prime trajectory, every single action we take, every single decision we make, every single step we take, everything, we can compare it to the prime trajectory outcomes that we're trying to achieve. And then we can just cut everything that's not applicable. It's like the vortex model training is great. It's wonderful. We'd love to do that. It's just not applicable to the prime trajectory of the umbrella showcase website launch.
Correct.
So it gets cut. So I would just delete priorities here. So I think when we say priorities, we're talking about the showcase launch plan, and that plan will include all the priorities that are prioritized as well as all of the different sub trajectories. So I think we can delete this one.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Oh, it's very important, the budget. The budget, CCC, board recruitment. This is just very, very important. So basically there's two main categories here. We have the non-profit budget. We've got, here, let's just, under the priority non-profit budget, there's the for-profit budget, there's the CCC board recruitment.
Yeah, the
recruitment round. There. And then basically, the goal is to have a stable budget for the remainder of the launch time before we get income. Right?
Yeah.
So multimedia policies, I mean, I would just put that under policies. So that would just be a priority or a topic under policies would be multimedia, right? You could even take decision-making could just be a policy, But I think decision-making is a little bit more. It's kind of related to staffing as well. So anything that comes up with staffing decisions and things like that. But I would say that multimedia policies could just come under policies.
Right.
As like a top priority for dealing with our policies. Does that sound good? So we can delete multimedia?
Yeah, it's under policies.
All right, so then we have Vortex and other methodologies. So this is important in regards to a few other things, including how we want to showcase our methodologies on the website itself. But I don't think it's a very high priority. I mean, I would say that we don't necessarily need this for. But it does relate to there's Sensei, right? So there's Sensei and all the other applicable models we want to launch with this showcase website. So basically, how do we actually implement the vision and the model that we know is going to be successful in alignment with the launch, right? Because we can just launch the website, but if we're not actually doing our methodologies, then are we actually achieving our goals? So this could actually become its own sub-trajectory, especially if that became part of our showcase. How that gets showcased. So definitely could become its own sub-trajectory, go under a different showcase trajectory for understanding what methodologies we need to. I think the key word here is that we need to have functional for the launch, right? So we're going to need to brainstorm and prioritize all the methodologies and basically narrow it down to what needs to be functional for the launch. So we said for the SVG launch, for example, Sensei did not need to be fully functional, but we did want to know the basic model, and actually prioritize it and do a topic on it and get started with it. And we got some of the segmentation models going. The only thing missing really is still the value component, which we do have. We're very close to having set up. So I feel like, even if we don't fully launch Sensei, we want to be able to launch Sensei at a moment's notice whenever we want to. We have that set up, that model going, or at least the segmentation model with the value.
Yeah.
Right. So, and then we could have, now that we're doing our new policy database, that can directly sync into that as well with the decision making and everything. So I think that's really good, and that could easily go from a sub trajectory from a segment under planning coordination to its own sub trajectory.
Yeah, the voting token, at least that kind of things, right?
Yeah, but again, it doesn't really
it's not really.
The value is the important part. Yeah. So we can just start tracking the value, and then it can become a token in the future or not. It doesn't matter. But the point is the value is what matters. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Anything else on the methodologies?
No, I think we're good.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there, and it's very important. I think this is the correct place. I think it should be under planning coordination for now. Overall trajectory management. So what about this one? What is? I think that's the same as basically management and timeline. I think there's no difference.
Yeah, scheduling and what we're doing.
Well, scheduling is a whole separate thing. But
yeah,
overall trajectory. I think this is what we just did, actually.
Exactly. I mean scheduling, because I'm saying so it's the priority to schedule
sub trajectory.
To schedule for this session constantly, and we are doing that.
No, I'm just saying. I'm saying that the overall sub trajectory management is what we did for topic 1. Right, to make sure, basically this is to make sure there is clarity on each of the currents. Right now there happens to be 8 trajectories, and everyone knows what they are and where they are going, right? Because each sub trajectory is its own little mini trajectional thing you're following, right? We're going along with it as it evolves, and it's always evolving and growing and changing. So we just want to make sure everybody's on the same page. I would say that's actually the number one top priority along with the schedule. We already just did it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then here
priorities and topics for this would be,
I mean, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's just making sure that the 8 sub trajectories are clear and further description, purpose, details, and all that, and then once you go into each one, we can start editing the details of the segments and all that, like we're doing now for the planning coordination trajectory. So I don't think there's necessarily any priority topic there. It just is. It's just like, it's like one of those things where it's like you don't technically need priority topics, right? An umbrella trajectory doesn't need a sub trajectory or a normal trajectory. It just automatically has one, right? So when there's something that's so important and such a high priority, it can become its own segment, even if it doesn't have any other sub priorities or topics. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it flows basically.
Yeah. So for the overall sub trajectory, and maybe management isn't the right term. Maybe it's more of the overall sub trajectory organizing. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we're just organizing the sub trajectories, and that would be the priorities, just organizing. So if we want to write organizing again, we can.
Or we can write management here.
But it's not management.
Or management.
It's not management. I think it's organizing. I think organizing is the correct term. So if we want to write organizing twice, we can, but it's not necessary. It's just like that's the segment itself is, again, it's just like a segment under the sub trajectory. So again, the sub trajectory is just planning and coordination. So it's fine that it doesn't need a topic underneath.
Yeah, but does it make sense that we are managing the organizing, right? What we're doing, we're managing making sure that it happens, that the rest of the team gets on the same page, that it's clear, right?
Yeah, so it's basically this particular segment is a topic that needs to be scheduled at the main session. So maybe we could say main session. That would be the priority. Does that make sense? Because this needs to be a topic at a main session. This is a task to prioritize this topic at a main session, to go over the sub trajectories with the team and make sure that they understand it. The same thing would also apply to the training. So training and trajectories, we need to schedule and we need to do main session topic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So main session topic. So this is another thing that's a main session topic.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
So most of these are basically topics within the work that needs to be done, where that one's the opposite. It's like that needs to become a topic somewhere else and escalated. A big group. All right. So what about this last one? Captivity, just follow up and follow through on the work. What's that?
I don't know. It was there in the list. I'm not sure. Let me see if there is some details.
I think that relates to what you were talking about before in relation to the client contracts, the workflow, all of that. I think that's what it is talking about, right? So you have, I mean, some of that comes with their SVG, but yeah, I mean, until we really know the entity, it's hard to really answer that question. So, but let's just call it workflow, right?
Yeah,
so
following through.
Sure we have follow up, follow through, and clear protocols and guidelines, which are policies, right? Policies. The definition of policies is protocols and guidelines that make sure we are getting the work done.
All right.
It's a little different than management, where the workflow is more like, I mean, it relates to management and timeline for sure. All my reminders, deadlines, but it's more like policy tracking. I would say workflow is kind of more like policy. So you have policies and you have policy tracking.
Okay.
Right? Because isn't that what we're talking about here? Because like management and timeline is basically kind of automated reminders, deadlines, reminding people to do the work, making sure like day to day, week to week, we're doing the work. But then there's another thing of basically follow through, where we're actually reviewing, so you have review. I think this is where review comes in. You have review, evaluation, you've got, policy tracking. verification, exactly, because like it's sort of like the opposite of management time. Like management timeline is making sure as we move forward, we're improving and getting everybody knows the work needs to get done and they know the deadlines. Whereas this is the opposite. It's basically kind of going back and being like, okay, what did we miss? What needs to be evaluated? How do we need to improve? Did everyone do their policy tracking and the policy keeping?
Yeah.
Let's say policy tracking, policy keeping, policy tracking, verification. So I don't think workflow is quite the right word because workflow obviously applies to management as well as a lot of other things here.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the right word is just follow through, right?
Yeah.
We
Following
could
through,
say follow
moving
through
forward.
because what follow through implies is that you're looking at the past, right? You're following through with something that has been decided in the past,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. These are all things that are review evaluation. You're following through with the work, right?
Yeah, following through with the work, exactly. And I
All
think
right.
this is very high priority. Let's make it a 7.5 or
Okay.
just a 7 is good. 7.5.
So the schedule is a bit empty. I don't know if you wanna put some more details. The schedule is
Well, we just have the regular weekly schedule, right? I mean, that's what it is. And then we have a policy related to minimum sessions that need to happen. I don't know, but I think that's it. I think it's just the regular weekly schedule.
yeah.
And it's just really clear. I mean, this is not a very complicated one.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that covers everything. I mean, I can't think of anything else that's not included. So basically you end up, oh, and each, I guess we don't necessarily need to create a segment on the planning coordination. So I think it's good. So I think that gives us 10, 11 segments.
Mm-hmm. So the scores make sense.
Yeah.
I
You can,
put 6.5 on training, 8 on budget, on CCC recruitment.
yeah. So let's go ahead and sort here.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to do it or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can do it.
Data is under data, right?
I can do it. Yeah,
You
data.
can do it?
No,
You're
I'm
doing
doing it. I'm doing it.
Okay.
Create filter, then filter for everyone. Then you just here set to A.
Perfect. All right. So schedule, I think, is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, we just go down the list here. We already did the overall subtrajectory organizing, so that's done. We just need to bring it into the main session
Mm-hmm.
so that everybody's on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have the budget, man. That budget, like, what is our timeline on the budget? Because we're gonna have like Stacy's gonna get fired. We're gonna continue not to get paid enough. Coming up very soon. So what is the deadline on the next month? Like, did we hit the full moon yet? We have 2 weeks. We're not full moon yet, are we?
For what? For the budget.
The budget.
Yeah, the
current,
budget is.
So the current moon phase is.
We are in the last quarter.
Last quarter moon. So that means we have like 7 days until the budget is basically due.
Yeah.
Until the budget starts. I mean, the budget's starting, then we have upfront pay stop in a week after that. So we have 2 weeks for upfront pay stop and 1 week before the budget starts. That's not good. So that's why this needs to be a top priority to prioritize the budget. Let me see what Stacy wrote. She wrote a couple things. You want to hear what she wrote real quick?
Where?
So Stacy texts sometimes, and so she sent some texts. She says, sorry, I have no moments of absence of the call. I'm drinking lots of food. See, she's still sick. Wondering about my thoughts for Wednesday. Can we schedule for Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday regarding CCC setup and management and planning for all that? 1 p.m. is any good at those times? Please advise. We'll send out an email accordingly. Thanks much. Also, if I'm calling, okay, cool. So that she is asking to schedule Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So that goes into our scheduling, which is good. So I think we want to basically go into the scheduling next. I'd probably take a break here, 5-minute break.
Mhm.
Make sure we're scheduling for the budget and the recruitment. All right.
Okay.
I feel like we're more organized than ever before. I mean, I feel like the vortex model and the trajectory model, it actually makes sense, because before we just had these huge lists of priorities, sometimes 100, dozens of priorities, and it was like overwhelming, and every day we had to kind of go through it. And now it's like we should be organized for like the next month or two, with these
I was
trajectories.
I was wondering, doesn't it change now that we're organizing everything this way? Doesn't it change the the, the the work that we listed for the management status, these kind of things? No, that stays the same.
The management status. Well, we haven't gone over so when we go into the management status, right? Everything's gonna evolve based on the trajectories for the overall organization, which we haven't done
Yeah.
yet, right? Because
Yeah.
right now we're only focused on the sub trajectories and the trajectory of the prime trajectory, which is half of all of our focus right now, right?
Okay.
And then the other half is going to be everything else, which we haven't even gone into yet. So we'll get there. We'll get to everything else, and we'll keep prioritizing it. And it's going to change all of the money priority list. It'll change all of the executive priority list. I mean, everything's going to evolve into the trajectory model where once we understand the trajectory, we can just basically jump into that trajectory and move it along, and we will automatically basically know what the next step is instead of having everything based on these priority lists that are not particularly organized.
Okay.
Because the priority list only tells you what you need to do immediately. It doesn't actually tell you what you're going to do next.
All right.
Because it's not organized in a trajectory. It's just organized linearly, which is only helpful for that particular moment. Yeah.
All right. We see the first management status is due the 17th for this.
Yeah. But the management status report is not really related to the trajectories. It's related to getting the work done. So that's just the question of getting the work done. All right. So
Well,
I think we're
anyways.
done with this. I feel really good about our planning and coordination sub trajectory. I think this is organized.
Right. So we should do that for each sub trajectory, right? This segmentation.
We will. It'll automatically come up in the schedule. So when we go through the schedule, we'll be scheduling we have 8 sub trajectories.
Uh-huh.
All 8 of these sub trajectories need to be scheduled. We have 4 sessions. So I think what we're looking at is 2 sub trajectories per session.
Okay.
So we're overlapping. For example, the website trajectories obviously can be overlapped together, the ones that focus on the websites, right? And then you have I would say, anyways, we'll talk about this as soon as we go back. We'll talk about the schedule. All we do with the schedule is you take a look at the 8 sub trajectories and make sure that the 8 sub trajectories all are scheduled. And then within the schedule will be when we focus on the segments of each sub trajectory.
All right, perfect.
But for this particular session on the planning and coordination, we only need to focus on our segments.
Yeah.
We don't need to worry about anything else. And the next segment is the schedule.
All right.
Yeah.
Got it.
Cool. So 5-minute break and come back.
Yeah, 5-minute break. Perfect. Yeah, sounds good.
accidentally left the